The Egyptian President Abdel Fattah El-Sisi has praised France's support for the Palestinian cause and emphasized the importance of recognizing the Palestinian state in accordance with international law and UN resolutions. During a phone call with the French President Emmanuel Macron, the two leaders highlighted the urgent need to begin Gaza's reconstruction immediately, ensuring that Palestinians remain on their land. They also agreed to maintain close consultations to support ongoing efforts to end the war and halt the humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip. Gaza talks between Hamas and Israel delegations continue for the second day in Sharm el-Sheikh. That comes as the atmosphere surrounding the indirect talks between Hamas and Israel is positive, with cautious optimism prevailing about ending the war in Gaza. That comes as intensive preliminary consultations took place in Doha between Egyptian and Qatari mediators and the Hamas delegation led by Hamas leader Khalil al-Hayya. Egypt's key mediating role alongside Qatar under tight security measures is highlighted. The talks held under U.S. pressure to reach a deal focused on securing a ceasefire, easing the humanitarian crisis, and arranging a detainee exchange in line with U.S. President Donald Trump's plan, which has recently expressed optimism about. Egyptian sources said that delegations from Qatar, Turkey and the United States continue to arrive at Sharm el-Sheikh to participate in discussions on implementing the U.S. President Trump's Gaza plan. The sources added that Egypt is intensifying efforts with all parties to reach a clear agreement and define the mechanisms required for the execution. The Egyptian sources added that Hamas has confirmed its readiness to release all living detainees and the remains of the deceased, while requesting clarification on the procedures and guarantees to prevent Israel from resuming aggression. That comes as Egypt has begun reviewing lists of Palestinian detainees for release under the exchange agreement, which include prominent figures such as Marwan Barghouti, Ahmed Sadat, Hassan Salameh, Abbas al-Sayed, and others. U.S. President Donald Trump has expressed optimism about advancing a Gaza agreement, noting that a U.S. delegation had just departed to participate in the negotiations. Speaking to reporters in the Oval Office alongside Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney, Trump stated that the discussions could pave the way for broader Middle East peace, suggesting that progress in Gaza might extend beyond the territory itself. Earlier, U.S. President Donald Trump has expressed strong optimism about reaching an agreement to end the war in Gaza, coinciding with Egypt's hosting of indirect talks between Israeli and Hamas delegations. Speaking to reporters in the Oval Office, Trump said Hamas had agreed to very important matters, signaling progress in the negotiations, while noting the existence of red lines. He affirmed that discussions were moving positively under his 20-point plan. Trump voiced near certainty of achieving a deal despite historical challenges, denying reports of tensions with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, whom he described as very positive. The Sharm el-Sheikh talks, mediated by Egypt and Qatar, focus on a ceasefire, detainee exchange, and humanitarian access.
We want to put it out and are putting it out, and they don't seem to care about it, but they do care. I believe that Pritzker and this mayor...
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said Washington is leading efforts to secure the release of detainees and end Hamas's rule in Gaza. He affirmed U.S. commitment to Israel's right to exist and defend itself, while pursuing lasting peace that ensures regional security. Rubio noted that a terrorism-free Middle East lies at the core of U.S. President Donald Trump's plan, describing it as a historic opportunity to close a dark chapter. The plan calls for Hamas to release all detainees in exchange for Israel freeing Palestinian detainees. Hamas official Fawzi Barhoum reiterated the movement's demand for an immediate end to Israel's assault on Gaza.
I'm not going to answer that because I can't characterize that for you right now. I think we'll know sooner rather than later, and a lot of that will be based on the conversation.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said the war in Gaza is nearing its end, describing the October 7th attacks as the most horrific event he has witnessed. Speaking to U.S. media on October 7th, he stressed that the conflict will end in Gaza through the release of all detainees and the end of Hamas's rule, expressing hope to achieve this soon with U.S. President Donald Trump's support. Netanyahu acknowledged remaining military tasks despite nearing total victory, warning that Iran is developing intercontinental missiles capable of reaching 8,000 kilometers. He praised U.S.-Israeli defense cooperation, including the Iron Dome system, and said expanding the Abraham Accords requires ending the Gaza war first. Hamas has stated that its delegation in Egypt is working to overcome remaining obstacles in pursuit of an agreement that meets the Palestinian aspirations. The movement emphasized that its top priority is an immediate halt to Israel's aggression and what it described as a war of extermination in Gaza. That comes as Hamas reaffirms its full commitment to the rights of the Palestinians and their legitimate aspirations, stressing that Israel has failed in its attempts at forced displacement or retrieving its captives by force. The movement affirmed its seriousness about reaching a ceasefire agreement in Gaza based on U.S. President Donald Trump's proposed plan. Egypt's Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati has stressed the need for coordinated European and international efforts to pressure Israel to allow unhindered humanitarian aid into Gaza, warning that the enclave faces famine-level conditions. During a joint press conference with the Dutch Foreign Minister, David van Wiel, Abdulati briefed his counterpart on Egypt's mediation efforts, including hosting indirect talks between Hamas and Israel linked to U.S. President Donald Trump's proposal. Abdulati invited Dutch participation in Egypt's upcoming reconstruction conference once a ceasefire is reached. He also underscored the importance of protecting Egyptian diplomatic missions in the Netherlands, promoting Nile Basin cooperation under international law, and expanding Egypt-Netherlands-Africa collaboration on development and humanitarian projects. The Dutch Foreign Minister David van Wiel has described the situation in Gaza as catastrophic after 2 years of war, emphasizing the urgent need to end the cycle of violence and achieve regional stability. Speaking alongside the Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati, he called U.S. President Donald Trump's plan a historic opportunity to end the conflict, praising Egypt and Qatar's roles in facilitating Hamas's approval to release detainees. Van Wiel hailed Egypt's key mediating role and affirmed his country's readiness to co-host Gaza's reconstruction conference. He announced 25 million euros in Dutch humanitarian aid and reaffirmed strong bilateral ties with Egypt, highlighting cooperation in renewable energy, migration, agriculture, and digital transformation within a strategic partnership framework. Dutch Foreign Minister David Van Wiel has arrived in Egypt's El Arish city to inspect logistical centers and humanitarian support points dedicated to Gaza. During the visit, he praised Egypt's vital role in evacuating thousands of wounded Palestinians from the Gaza Strip, particularly children. Van Wiel reiterated the urgent need to end the catastrophic situation in Gaza and called for the release of all detainees. His visit comes amid intensified international efforts to facilitate aid delivery and support ongoing mediation aimed at achieving a ceasefire and easing the humanitarian crisis.
Coordination with the Israeli side.
Yeah. So you really have to coordinate on a daily basis with the Israeli side how many trucks are coming, when to the
we check everything, and we coordinate about each single.
Dutch Foreign Minister David Van Wiel has expressed deep concern over the worsening humanitarian situation in Gaza. During a press conference at the Rafah border crossing on the Egyptian side, he thanked Egypt for its pivotal role in facilitating the entry of humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip and reaffirmed the Netherlands' support for U.S. President Donald Trump's plan regarding Gaza. Van Wiel stressed the urgent need to bring the war to an immediate end, emphasizing that continued violence will only worsen the suffering of civilians and undermine efforts towards lasting peace in the region.